Welcome to the Healthy Body, Healthy Mind podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kinghorn, co-founder and CEO of HBHM. We're a carbon neutral wellness brand and we're focused on the well-being of our customers and the planet. We produce a range of products designed to support a healthy lifestyle. This podcast is for our community. We will have a range of experts in the health, fitness and wellness space designed to help you all improve many aspects of your life. For listening to this podcast, you can get 15% off our products at hbhm.com by using the code HBHMPOD at checkout. Thanks for listening. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Healthy Body, Healthy Mind podcast. So today we have Robbie Simpson with us. Robbie is a elite runner from the northeast of Scotland, probably most well known for his Commonwealth Games bronze medal in the marathon in the Gold Coast in Australia in 2018. But there's a lot more to him than that. Looking through his UK Athletics profile last night, there's been race wins all around the world. There's been multiple podium places at World and European Mountain Running Championships, as well as podium places at the famous Sierre Zinal mountain race. He's a several-time winner of the Jungfrau Marathon in Switzerland, got to get it pronounced right. And if he enters a race locally in Scotland, it's rare if there's not a first place against his name. So he's a proper all-rounder on road and mountain races, boasting PBs in the marathon of 2 hours 14 minutes, half marathon of 64 minutes, as well as a 10K of 29 minutes as well. So an incredible runner, and he's even dipped his toes into the ultra running world as well. So also in a couple of weeks' time, he'll be up against the best of Britain at the Team GB Olympic Marathon Trials in London. So welcome to the Healthy Body, Healthy Mind podcast, Robbie. Good to have you on. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Brian. It's good to have a chat, and it's going well, thanks. So it's the last, it's only 2 weeks now to the champs, to the trials. So it's starting to taper things down and just relax a little bit more, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but
So let's just go straight into the trials then, and then we'll bring it back and hear a bit more about you after that. So how are you feeling then? How's training been going?
I've started building up sort of October, November last year, and started off well. Things were going well. I was really optimistic, and then just really towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, there was a lot of snow and ice and things, and I was doing my best, but to be honest, I wasn't feeling that great. I had a little bit of illness, and it wasn't the best, and I was thinking, right, we'll see how it goes. I'll just keep persevering with the training. But really the last sort of 3-4 weeks, things have really picked up and turned around, and now I'm starting to feel like the training's worked. So quite often, you're training, you do a load of good sessions and you don't feel great straight away. It just takes a little bit of time for them to sink in. So now I'm feeling that it's coming together. So now we're more or less on the taper. It's just a case of ticking over and just sharpening up a little bit. But happy. Like with a marathon build up, it's never perfect start to finish, but as long as it's good closer to the race, I think that's the important part. So
yeah. And how excited are you to line up against all these other guys?
Really excited. I mean, it's been a long time since I had an actual race, let alone a world class, or certainly a very high class event like this. So it's really exciting, and it's nice to do a race where you have no idea how it's going to go. Yeah. So often you can go into like a local race or something, and you have a good idea of what you're capable of, but I've no idea. So just turn up and run and see what happens. So it's exciting.
So what is the format of it? How many runners are there? I know it's laps, but what's the distance of each lap and things like that?
So the field, I think, was up to a maximum of probably 30, but I mean, it could be anything between 20 and 30. I think there's been maybe a few last minute dropouts. So men, there's the same probably number of men and women roughly, starting at the same time and running on the same course, which is well, there's a small lap at the beginning, which is about a mile, and then there's a longer lap, which is 3.333 kilometers or something. And we do 12 of those, and then there's a slight extra bit at the end. So, yeah, it's quite a lot of laps, 13 in total, taking in, considering the first lap too. So it's a lot. It's very different to the normal London race format. But having said that, I think is quite good because it is very flat, and they're telling us it's quite sheltered as well.
Okay.
And there's a few corners, obviously, which they've tried to smoothen out and make less severe. And they say it's a very fast course. So, yeah, we'll see. But I'm hopeful that it is.
And how are you feeling about the laps? That many laps? Are you just taking it in your stride, or is it something you're conscious of?
Well, to begin with, I was thinking, I don't like laps. And originally it was only meant to be 8 laps. But the 5K loop that they wanted to use wasn't suitable in the end. I think there was sections that were very narrow and tight corners and things. So then when it got changed to 13, I was like, I don't like running laps. And people were saying, you're not a track runner, so you don't like doing laps. But actually, having practiced a little bit more, there's a lot of advantages to it because you know exactly what you have coming. It's much easier to pace. It's much easier to pick up drinks and things as well, because you'll have like a table basically every lap where you can get, energy drinks, water, whatever. So that's really good. And I think mentally it's quite easy just to tick off the distance. So I've done a couple of sessions doing laps and gone into them thinking, I'm not sure how I'm going to enjoy this. But then it's gone by quickly. It's always been consistent and stuff like, it's just got to take it, like you say, take it in your stride. There's no other choice. So I can't.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose you've got the opportunity to race, which there hasn't been that many opportunities recently. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not going to complain about any small details like that. I'm just happy to be going there and getting a race.
Awesome. And so who else is running that you're aware of? I know people might pull out and things, but as far as you're aware, who else is running, from British runners?
So just thinking of the top guys, I'm assuming Ben Connor from England, Johnny Mellor, I would say, Dewey Griffiths, all those guys have ran fairly close to 210 or just under. So I think those will be the main guys. And then I'm sure there'll be guys like Josh Griffiths as well, who's also been a good performer over the years. I'm trying to think who else. I haven't looked into it. I've not seen a start list or anything. So
I think concentrating on yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everybody who's ran, I think to be invited, you need to have a PB of under 219.
Okay.
So I think more or less all those guys got an invite, and I don't know how many of them accepted, but definitely, everyone who's there is going to be fast. So,
and what's the goal?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I don't have a specific time in mind. I'd like to run a PB I feel like it's possible now with the fitness I've got. It's just a case of running a good race, which is obviously tricky as well. So I have to really think about how to pace it and what group to run with, because I know there's a pace group that is going for 210. And I think for me, that's a bit of a jump up in terms of my PB at the moment being quite a few minutes slower than that. So it's just trying to know then what group to try and go with, or how to approach it that side, because I have to go and really give it a proper shot and run fast. I don't want to go there and sort of jog the first half and not put myself in any contention. It's just getting the right balance. So, I mean, there's also the goal of qualifying for the next Commonwealth Games. The qualification time, I think, is 2:15. So if I ran quicker than I've done before and got under that would be good. And then apart from that, it's just see how it goes. I mean, if I got halfway through and I feel really good, I can always pick up. And I don't really have a limit of a time that I can't run, but at the same time, everybody's like thinks they can run faster than they can most of the time, and they go in and they say, I only want to run like whatever 2:15, and then they run the first half in like 65, and then run 2:20. So it's just trying to be sensible and not get too carried away. So.
Well, we've all been there, and it's good to hear that even the elites have that, going off too quick and then suffering the second half. So it's all about just making the sensible choices in the first half.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, but I think it could be faster than the normal London course, because I find the first half of the normal London Marathon is a little bit downhill and you can go quite fast there. But then the second half does drag on a bit, and there's a few little climbs and quiet sections where your head goes a little bit. So I think it might be a faster course. So yeah, we'll see, but hopefully.
And is it just a full out because I know obviously Callum Hawkins, he's already pre-selected. Is it just the first two get selected, or is that how it's working?
Yeah, I think it's first two on the day, but I think they also have to have run the qualification time, which is about, I think, 2:11:30.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm assuming that the first two guys on the day will be faster than that anyway.
Yeah.
You'd think. But then a few guys have already ran the time in other races. So if for example, the race was very slow winning time, then they might get picked if they're in the first two just because they've ran the time somewhere else. So I'm not exactly sure. They seem to always leave a little kind of get out clause, like, yeah, we would pick this person, but in some circumstances we won't, or there's always like a way they can maneuver a bit. So
cool. Oh well. And just, I suppose there's the logistic side from a COVID perspective. I assume it's some sort of bubble again. Is it COVID safe bubble?
Well, yeah, we all have to get tests and things the day before the event before going there. But I think there's not much mixing of anybody really until the race. Okay. So we're all still kept separate. And then I think even on the start line, we have to wear masks more or less till a few seconds before the start. But it's more complicated because everybody needs to have a +1 to hand out bottles and things.
Okay.
So then it just means there's a lot more of us there. And for example, Ginny's coming with me to hand out my drinks and things, but if she tests positive, then I can't race either and things. So there's all these little issues with it. I think in an ideal world, they'd want us all to live within an hour of the race and just turn up.
Yeah. Like
either the night before or the morning of the race. But obviously traveling from here, have to be there a bit more in advance. So Ginny, who's your partner, obviously, so you'll be just both in the house, not seeing anyone for the next couple of weeks to ensure there's no risk of anything. Yeah, that's something I've had to think about, because if the worst case scenario would be to go there, then test positive, because then I wouldn't be able to just come straight back. Yeah. Fly back home. I'd have to stay there probably for 10 days or whatever, 2 weeks. So the next week anyway, certainly not going to mix with anyone.
Cool. Okay, so it's the 26th, Friday the 26th of March.
Yeah.
Kew Gardens, is that right?
Yeah.
And is it televised? Do we know that yet?
That's a good question. I think they were trying to get that organised with the BBC, but I think they left it quite late. But I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're trying to.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is, and we can, watch and cheer you along on the day. So best of luck on that. It's going to be awesome to see you as part of that group of runners. So, right, well, let's bring it right back to the start then. So, how did you first get into running? Was there any other sports involved, or was it always running?
Well, I tried some other sports when I was younger, but I was terrible at basically everything else. No coordination or speed or skill, like football, just no skill at all. So I joined the athletics club in Banchory because one of my friends was there. So I must have been, I was in the youngest probably age you could be for joining. So that would be say 11 or 12, something like that. And I did a few events and it was pretty much last in everything the whole time, like all the short distance things. But then we did a longer event one time, like I can't remember if it was an 800 or 1500, and I wasn't last in that, and I actually felt quite good at it. And then at school we did a few running events as well, and we had this like 2K fun run, which I did and really surprised myself. I won it one of the years. I can't remember if it was the first year I did it or the second, but I won that, and it gave me a bit of confidence to then do some of these longer events. And to begin with, I was doing like track and cross country with the club, and it was quite nice just representing the club and going down and doing races and actually winning things as well from quite a young age. So like I must have had some sort of ability to run long, but I still had very poor skills in every other event, and even like sprinting and things, I couldn't really do that very well. Okay. But that was all really just at the start. But it was great, I think, in this local area because there were so many little events on that you could try even from a young age. So I really got the taste of the competition quite early, and yeah, it was just good to see the progress because I wasn't even training when I did those first events. It was just off of like whatever fitness from walking around a bit, cycling quite a lot when I was younger. So I had fitness, and then that was enough to do okay. And then when I started training, then I really noticed the improvements. So
Yeah.
it's good.
So how long now then roughly would you have been like properly training then?
Oh, yeah, quite a long time actually. So I mean, I did my first races in 2004, like the first sort of cross country season.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a lot of years now, isn't it? It's like 16, 17 years
Yeah.
of racing, and the likes of Balmoral as well. You know, I raced that 2004, and I think 2005 even I did quite well at one of the races. I can't remember if it was that year or the year after. I won one of the primary school races. No, secondary school race. So yeah, I mean, I've been training consistently since then, but I probably only really increased to quite higher mileage when I was 18 or so. But even that, it's over 10 years of.
Yeah.
Probably did the first 100-mile week when I was like 18. So it's like 12 years almost of training like that. So don't know how many more years are left, but
I'm sure there's plenty of life left in you yet. You just need to go longer. You know, that's what happens as you get older. Just go longer and go into longer distance races.
yeah, well, it's funny you say that because like one of the first races, always the first time I've ever done well in an event was when I've gone up a distance. And I remember doing like a half marathon. I did a 10-mile one year, the D-side 10-mile, whatever it was, Ballater 10. And it was the day after a hill race. And I just did it as like a Sunday run and won it. And I think, one of the youngest people to have ever like raced 10 miles or something. I was like 16. But like I felt really good over that distance because that was longer than what I was used to. And then it was the same doing half marathons and things. So I've always kind of preferred longer distances. But now like the longer distances now look very daunting once you go beyond 50K and stuff. It's
Well, I've never gone further than marathon apart from my own sort of thing that I did at Christmas time, but it was very painful going about. Like I sailed through the marathon distance feeling really comfortable, and I think it was 43 and a half miles in total is what the run was. And yeah, I think I got to around 30 miles, and just those last 30 miles were a big struggle. So I think I'm just going to stick to marathons for the time being anyway.
That was really good to see that. I think it was impressive to give it a go. And yeah, it just shows you there's something about it psychologically because a marathon is far, but when you just run it slightly easier than what you'd race at, you think, oh yeah, I could surely do a lot more.
Yeah.
And then you can, but then I think once you get to 30 miles, it gets really hard.
I know. So when, I know you're obviously a professional runner right now. So when did you turn pro originally?
Well, I finished uni when I was, I can't even remember how old I was now, but I guess I was early 20s, and then I wanted to just move abroad and do mountain running because there wasn't much in the way of the races in the UK, and I thought I could move over there and sort of live quite cheaply. And I'd saved up a little bit of money just from working after I'd left school, so I just went over there, and I don't know if I had a plan to be pro, but I just thought I would get a job when the money ran out. But then I'd race as much as I could in the hope that I could maybe earn enough money not to get a job. And then and I had a little bit of support as well, like sponsorship from back at home and from Macintosh Plant Hire at the time. And that kind of kept me going initially. And then within a year or two, I was racing a lot better. And that's when I got the medal in the European Champs as well. And then from there, just sort of kicked on. And then I was kind of in the racing circuit, doing things almost every week in the summer, and then saving a bit of money. So I wasn't getting any sponsorship from any brand or anything, but I was just making enough to survive. And I was living quite cheaply, so that helped. So then I just kept going like that for a while. And yeah, so that must have been, I guess I was 23 or something. So yeah, about almost 6, 7 years of being pro. But a lot of people ask me about going pro, but it's not really a decision that you make. Like, I'm just going to be, unless you just sign a contract straight away. Like, you have to really race well, and then you make more than you spend, and then that is, now you don't have to work anymore. So it's not like you quit your job to try and be pro. It's more, you get good enough that you don't have to work to earn the money. You can get it through racing.
Yeah. So it just sort of happened then, over time.
Yeah, because I was always prepared, like, oh, if I get injured or something, then I'll just pick up some work, and then that'll keep me going. But then I was lucky enough that I could save a bit. Every year I just saved a little bit more. And then I was thinking, well, now I could go, like, say 6 months without doing any races and it'd be okay. And so that kept me going, while I was away.
And now you're an Adidas athlete, is that right? How long have you been working with them?
So just since the end of 2019, I signed the contract, like, starting in 2020, it was good in some ways, because it was the first time I've had like a role where you are, I am, like, I get a salary, as not, I'm not got a massive salary, but I've got something to keep me going, like a retainer. And that was great to have. And it was my first proper, like, contract and everything. But then, of course, it coincided with starting 2020, and I barely managed to do any races now to sort of show, like, my kind of performances in that. But I've been able to do something, and I'm just glad to have had the support in that time, because if I hadn't signed the contract, with no races to do, and it would have been a totally different feel the last year.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, hopefully you can get more races this year, that's for sure. So what does your training generally look like? If you're training for a marathon, how much miles per week, what type of sessions are you doing per week? How does that look?
Well, I mean, it looks very different to the mountain running training, but I quite like generally fairly high mileage all through the year, just because I feel that it makes me able to absorb a bit more in the way of quality training as well, and just I can get away with doing a little bit less of the really high intensity stuff, because that tends to be what injures me. I think doing jumping on the track and doing absolutely flat out reps, it doesn't seem to work so well for me. So I quite like the longer runs, longer sort of tempo sessions, long reps, things like that. I'm a big fan of. So in the marathon training, I might go up to, I've gone up to 120 miles before, but I would probably go between 110, 115 quite a lot of weeks. It seems to be enough for me to, like, build up enough fatigue so I'm getting fitter, but at the same time, I'm not going into sessions completely knackered and not able to get, like, the quality out of them. So I generally do about that for a decent block of, a few months maybe, and then probably 2 harder sessions a week, not really more than that, just because I struggle to recover. I think when I was younger, I don't remember ever having tired legs. to do anything I wanted, and the next
all
day,
day, every day.
Yeah, I wasn't doing the same mileage, but certainly the quality. Like, I could do a hard session, the next day my legs would feel fresh. Whereas now I feel tired the next day. So I generally have 2 harder days, and one of them might be a tempo run, or if it's not a tempo run, it'll be reps that are long. Maybe a couple of kilometers reps of a couple of kilometers long, and then one session that's maybe a little bit shorter, sharper, like 1K reps or 1 mile reps in there, just to keep the speed going. And then I'm a big fan of doing some long runs with tempo in them as well, like at marathon pace or close to marathon effort. Not a lot of them, because I've done a lot of different training in the past, I should say. Like, before marathons, I've experimented a lot, and I've found that there's a point where you can train too much and just end up tired. So, like, before Gold Coast, I was very conservative with the training sessions, and I didn't do any very big sessions, but I just managed to do a lot of good weeks and a lot of mileage. And I think that really worked. So now I don't go back to doing, in the past, I did something like a 23-mile tempo run one time, and like 7 by 3K and stuff like that. Whereas I don't go back to doing that, just because I found it just made me knackered and I didn't race very well. So there's a kind of a fine line between training hard enough to get fit and training so hard that you actually become less fit. So it's kind of finding that sweet spot.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed, I was on your Strava earlier on today, and the consistency is absolutely incredible over the last, I think 12 weeks, you get the last 12 weeks, it shows you on Strava, but certainly the last sort of 6, it's pretty much exact same mileage every week. And I think that's certainly what I find is what's helped me improve is just that consistency for a regular basis.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think that's where it pays off, because you can try and do more. And like, yeah, I could probably squeeze in some extra miles and some extra sessions, but then you would get like 2 weeks in and then you'd need to really cut back again. And then, or you'd get an injury and need some time off. And I think it's just that unbroken run of just doing lots of miles and sessions. And they don't need to be amazing, but it's just doing them like week in, week out. And like last year as well, like I think I had a few days off. I tried to take, I never normally take days off, but after the Lara Gru race, I took a day off running. Then after the Benihee Ultra, I took a day off running. And I think I only had maybe 3 days off in the whole year off of running. And yeah, every week was just consistent. So then going into this year, it's felt good. So yeah, I think that's what gets you fit. It's just the difference is trying to change the focus. So you can be consistent, but then I couldn't do the same 2 sessions every week. Yeah. And then still improve. It's like going through phases of saying, oh, the focus of this training block is speed, or this is, strength, or this is marathon specific sessions. And you're always consistent, but you're just changing the sessions based on what your goal is.
Yeah. Awesome. And I know there's this, some cross training, some runners absolutely swear by it and do, other training or strength and conditioning. Whereas there's some other runners that just do none of it. So where do you sit on that spectrum?
Well, the strength and conditioning is interesting because I've started doing that in the last sort of year and a half since I've been on the Institute of Sport in Scotland, and like I go and do 1 or 2 sessions a week in the gym. So I found that interesting, like just to see how my body reacts, and like I definitely think that I've had fewer niggles because of that. But it's been very specific to running and lots of squats and lunges and things like that, and recently more like plyometrics. And I think it's been good. I've enjoyed it as well, just the variety. And sometimes you go into it knackered because you've done a load of running, but actually you feel quite fresh when you're doing it, and then it kind of wakes the legs up. So that's been good. But I think that, yeah, it's very easy to get caught up in other sports and think, oh, I can do cross training like every day and do very little running. But the problem with the running, especially marathons, is you really need all the conditioning, like to run the distance and not get injured. You have to be able to handle a really high load. I think, running a long time and sometimes on hard surfaces and sometimes very fast. And if you kind of shy away from that and get too into the cross training, I think you can not condition yourself enough. And then you are more likely to get injured, maybe when you do these longer events. But then also, if you're naturally more likely to get injured, certainly the cross training helps as like a balance of stopping you getting too injured. So it's definitely useful for some people, but generally, if I was training for a marathon, I would prefer to run more than anything else, because running is obviously what I'm going to be doing. Whereas if I was training for mountain running, I might find it more useful to do a bit more cycling or even hiking and things like that, just because it's a slightly different set of muscles and fitness than it is from road running. So there can be a bit more overlap.
Yeah. Okay. And, so I suppose, you're doing big mileage, you're, doing some, some strength and condition as well. So what about your recovery? How does it look? Any particular methods of recovery that you're, any modalities, anything like that, or how does your recovery look?
Well, I think one thing is really being very cautious with easy runs, like having actual easy runs and not saying it's easy and running really fast every day. Because that's in the past, like when I've been really tired or struggling to recover, I just go out the door, don't even look at the watch, and just run really easy on trails. And I find that makes me feel better. And then normally the next day I feel a bit fresher again. Yeah. And I think, being off road definitely helps. So if I'm doing easy runs, they'll be on trails almost all the time. Apart from maybe in the middle of winter, if it's dark, I might run, like my second run in the evening might be on road, just because it's street lit. But like the rest of the time, I would just try and get off roads to help recovery. But otherwise, just not being lazy, I think the word is. It's just trying not to do too much apart from the training and really sleeping a lot, like yeah, sleeping sometimes 10 hours, not always, but 9 to 10 hours most nights, and trying to minimize doing a lot of walking around. I mean, I take the dog out every day for a walk, but the rest of the time, not stressing too much.
Yeah. And is sleep something that you've been more conscious of as you've, grown older in your career?
Yeah, definitely. Because when I was younger, I didn't really find there was any issue with.
Yeah, just get on with it.
Yeah, you'd travel to races and you couldn't sleep or whatever, and you just still race fine, and you do a big session and not worry about sleep, or you have something else on or whatever, and it was never an issue. I could always just get up and do the same training, and to some extent I probably can, but I just know how damaging it is to do it for a long time.
Yeah.
So now I have been very careful to try and force that, and I think the last year has been really well because of lockdown. To be honest, it's been easier to get to sleep because I've had fewer other things to do that get in the way. So I think I've noticed the benefit of that in terms of injuries, fewer injuries.
Yeah. No, I think sleep is becoming more and more important. And I think it's more and more athletes and, anyone is just more aware of sleep. There used to be this mentality about, a lack of sleep being a bit of a badge of honor, but I think that's slowly changing. And, I can certainly still improve, but over the last couple of years, I've definitely been more aware and try and make sure I get enough sleep, because it definitely helps you feel fresher. Yeah, from a running perspective, that is your profession, so you clearly need to be. But for me as a a keen runner, but also the business and things like that, sleep is just so important to your everyday life, and too many of us are not getting enough of it as well. So yeah, it's definitely something to pay attention to and try and improve, that's for sure.
There's a really good book. I can't remember the name of it now, but it's about sleep and this complete expert telling you all the different things that happen when you do sleep or don't sleep that much, and all the different illnesses and issues linked to it. And I read that book, and then it changed everything. It's amazing.
Probably Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read that book as well. So yeah, definitely recommend that to any listeners as well. It's a great read. It's a harrowing read as well. If you're not getting enough sleep, it really does highlight how important it is. So yeah, definitely recommend that book to anyone, regardless of what you do.
Yeah.
So on to a bit about nutrition then. Is any particular diet that you follow at all, or?
I've tried lots of different things. When I was younger, I just eat anything and just tons of it, and I still do to some extent. I think my main thing when it comes to diet is eating a lot, eating a lot all the time. So since I was young, I've eaten a lot, and I've always just eaten tons and tons of food, and I think that really helps just the recovery as well. But it's obviously important to eat the right things, but a lot of people just cut back on calories a little bit, and I think that's the worst for injuries and just for energy levels and things. I've tried. I more or less don't eat meat. I mean, I've gone a long time without eating meat in the past, and I even tried being vegan for a few months and stuff. But I think overall, there's no secret weapon when it comes to diet. I think it's just eating healthily, lots of vegetables, lots of variety, different grains, different everything. I don't think it's bad to have meat. I don't think it's bad to have anything in particular, but just having lots and lots of variety, and really reading a bit about it, about what things do. And a lot of people seem to think they have a healthy diet. I think everybody would say they have a healthy diet, but then when they actually see, if they lay it all out on a plate, and see what it is compared to what a healthy diet actually is, then they'd be, a little bit shocked. So,
and I know that are you still very much a pizza man the night before a race?
Obviously I haven't been traveling to any races recently, so that's taken a bit of a hit. But it started off, I was doing a lot of races in Italy and things, and close to Italy, and there'd always be amazing pizzas, and it's one of the best things you can have, just because it's going to be kind of freshly made and safe and heated to a really high temperature, so it's quite a safe thing to have, and it's very easy to eat. Because if you're nervous before a race, sometimes picking at a bowl of pasta when you're in a group of about 100 other runners in this sort of tent thing before a race, you get a bit nervous. Whereas a pizza, you can just sneak off and get a pizza,
Yeah.
eat it in your room, and then it's easier to eat. So.
Yeah, good for you. Night before a race, just nothing too spicy. I've learned that. I've learned that lesson.
Yeah, nothing too spicy, nothing too heavy. I wouldn't have anything like really meaty or fatty the night before a race either. Just something easy in the stomach.
Yeah, yeah, cool. So I was sort of thinking about, and I think running, for a lot of people, especially over the last year, with lockdowns happening all around the world and things like that, running for mental health has become, really important. This, and my experience of that as well is I've battered on for years that running for me is as much physical as mental. I think getting outside, clearing the head, getting fresh air in nature, really helps. I think, if you get out in the morning, it really sets you up for your day. Likewise, if you get out in the evening, it can just, clear your head after a tough day at work or whatever it is. So, for you being an elite athlete and effectively it's your job to run, do you still get that sort of mental health benefit from running?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I've always really enjoyed running, and I think the two things that make you feel good are being out in nature, especially when you're running off road and things, and in the countryside. Like, that is great. Even if you weren't running, just being there is great for your mental health. It makes you feel good. And then secondly, when you push yourself physically and do like a harder workout, then it obviously releases endorphins too and everything, and you feel really good. So the combination of the two of them just makes running, I think, a really good sport for your mental health. And I think for some professional athletes, it might not be quite the same, because if you're forced to follow a plan, like if you have to, and you're, say, a track runner or something, and you're knackered and you're like, oh, I've got to go out the door and do this, then maybe it's not like that. But I don't know, because it's not me. I really enjoy getting out there every day, and I think it's very rare to finish a run and not feel a lot better than you did at the start.
Yeah.
So there'll be some days when I'm really tired and I've done a run in the morning, and then it's like, an evening run, like, with sore legs. But then I go out and then I come back and I'm like, whoa, that was great. Just what you needed. And if you are stressed, then I think it's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Certainly when you become more comfortable running, when you start off and it's very, very hard, it probably helps too. But when you get fitter and it feels really automatic and controlled, then it helps even more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Even, if people are starting, I think the biggest message, from me, and I'm sure from you as well, is just get outside, whether that's walking or running or cycling or whatever it is. I think there's just something about being outside, and especially, we're, blessed where we live up in the northeast of Scotland. There's lots of different places to go, woodland areas and forests and things like that. And if you can get out and just, make the most of the time outside, it really does help.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So 2021, then obviously you've got the Olympic marathon trials coming up pretty soon, but I know it's probably still quite hard to predict what the plans are. But what races or what is on the plans for 2021?
I'd like to go back and do some more trail and mountain running. Definitely. So that would be on the plan as soon as I finish the marathon and recover, just to get back on the hills again and start building up that training, with the aim of racing, but not knowing exactly when or where. But I've got a plan to go out to Europe and do some races for the Adidas Terex team.
Okay.
So that would be maybe June, July, August sort of time. Like, basically, if I can get out there, then I'll go and do it. And if I can't, then I'll just forget 1 month and think, right, maybe I can go next month. And then if I can't, then think about the month after. But there's other options maybe in the UK too. So I did hope to do the shorter race at the UTMB, like the 50 odd K race, but it's dependent on me doing a race to qualify before that.
Okay.
And it has to be in May, before the end of May. So I've got an entry for a 50K race in Scotland in May. So if that goes ahead, that's great. And if it doesn't, then I'll just push things back to June and try and pick up. But basically, any kind of hilly races. I'd like to go out to Sierras and Al again. That's that, and then the UTMB race would be like the two kind of main goals. But like I said, it's dependent on getting there, and I really need to be there like 6 weeks before to train properly and get used to the altitude. So like fingers crossed for that. And if not, then I'll do any kind of Scottish hill races, or I think even in the Lake District there might be some longer trail races too. So
Okay.
yeah, think about that.
Just to see what happens, basically.
Anything, anywhere,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
What about some longer term goals then in the sport? I know you've obviously done, was it 2 ultras now officially, or
Yeah, 250 miles well, wasn't last year, was it? It was the year before. 50 miles in 2019, and then I did Benny Ultra last year, the 50k.
is that something you want to do more of, or are you kind of sticking to marathon and mountains, or what's the longer term plans?
Yeah, I'm quite keen to go into it more. I mean, I've done a lot of the same races for the last 10 years, and the likes of marathons and shorter mountain races. I've done so many of them, and I've really enjoyed them, but I feel that I would like to have a new challenge, because whenever I've gone up the distance in the past and done like steeper, hillier, longer races, it's always been a good move. And I think it would be nice to have that challenge again, because I can go into a marathon now, or certainly a sort of mountain marathon, and think like, it's not a big, I've done so many, it's not a massive physical challenge compared to doing like the 50-mile event I did. I like to line up at a race and think, right, I don't know if I can actually make it to the end.
Yeah.
And it's a nice feeling to have when you make it to the end, obviously. But yeah, certainly I think I'd like to try more in the sort of 50-mile, maybe up to 100k. I might be rubbish at them, and if I am, it's no problem. I can easily come back down the distance again. But it would be nice to just push myself a bit and see how that feels, and even maybe up to 100-mile, because you see races like Western States and things, and you think, oh, it'd be amazing to go, and UTMB. There's so many classics, and I think you need to do them to say you've been a proper trail runner.
I think there's something about making yourself scared, having a big goal and being scared and excited also about the challenge. And I think, you can sometimes get into a bit of a comfort zone. So, something like Western States or something for you just throw you so far out of your comfort zone, but that would be the exciting thing about it.
Yeah, definitely. And every time I've done something like that in the past, like I said, it's been a good move. So there's so much more to learn as well. So it just keeps things exciting. And now I've been racing so long, so I've done a lot of races, and it's been really good. But I'm definitely ready for some new challenges. So yeah, I'll give it a go. But like I said, hard to know. It's just a totally different thing. It's totally different to short racing, but it's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think you're clearly somebody that inspires a lot of other runners and a lot of people, certainly in Scotland and beyond. So who are your inspirations? Who do you draw inspiration from? And that could be current runners, ex-runners, non-runners. Who do you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, it's always a difficult question, because when I started running, I didn't know any runners, didn't know any famous runners, never heard of anyone at all. So I just ran. Yeah, and I didn't have anybody to look up to as such. And some of the guys locally, winning races back then, were, I thought, well, it's really impressive, like seeing them run. And then, of course, I met Fraser quite early in my career, just because, through all the events I did, I met, Fraser Klein, and he's quite quiet about a lot of his achievements. But then when I got talking to Fraser and I was hearing about some of the things he did, and I had a book as well that I got. Won in a race when I was a junior, and it mentioned Fraser in it, winning the Sculty Hill race. I think he won it like 16 times or even more. So yeah, reading that, I think Fraser locally, when I was developing a bit, was a good sort of role model to have, and just to ask a few questions and think like, yeah, this guy's basically done everything, and he's in the local area, and it's impressive just to hear like how good he actually was, and not just at marathons, but across everything, hill racing, longer distances like 5Ks, just the consistency over so long. So that was kind of a local role model. And then when I was getting into the mountain running more and going abroad, like I remember hearing about this guy called Jonathan Wyatt, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I knew he'd been like world champion lots of times. And then I was looking into more of like what he was doing at his best, and it was just ridiculous. So many of the races I've done, the likes of Jungfrau Marathon, I've won that 3 times, and so is he, but his fastest time there is 2:49 for an uphill marathon.
Yeah.
So just to give you some idea of how it's got 6,000 feet elevation gain, and he ran it in 2:49.
Wow.
And there's so many races like that he won. He won like a race, at least one every weekend, if not two, in like course record times. And he ran under 28 minutes for 10K as well on track. So he was a really impressive runner.
Yeah.
And it was quite underrated because he was before like the time of social media.
Yeah.
Like he kind of just finishing his career as that was really taking off. So he doesn't have like the massive profile of some of the other people, but like he was so consistent for so long and just on another level. So I got the chance to race him quite a few times. I think when I was 17 maybe or 18, I got to race him first time. And of course he completely whipped me. But then by the time I got to like 24, 25, then he was over 40 then. So then it was...
there was that evening out happened at that point.
Yeah, there was a few races where we were similar, and then I was quicker and he was older, but yeah.
Oh, well, no, that's good. And Fraser Klein is an upcoming guest on the podcast as well. So we'll go into some of his stories when he comes on as well and hear all about his career. So I think British running right now seems to be in a good place. There's a lot of, exciting prospects. So, whatever distance, is there anyone you're excited about right now in British running?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the thing was like, just thinking back to the last time I did a marathon trial was 2016 before Rio, and there were a couple of good guys. Obviously, you had Callum and Derek, and they were like miles quicker than everybody else, really, the other Brits. And then you fast forward a couple of years to now, and it's so many good marathon runners, so many good 10K runners, 5K runners, men and women. It's just absolutely booms. And I think that's amazing. Like it's the depth in these fields, like the sort of top end of British running is, I think it's the best it's been for a really long time. And people talk about like the glory years. I'm sure Fraser will, in the 80s. But I think the times people are running now are actually across the board, like, some of them are a lot faster even.
Yeah. And
there's a young guy, I think it's Jake Smith, and he ran, I can't remember what his time he ran for half marathon last year, but it might have been under 61. It was around 61 minutes, if not like 60-30 or something. Yeah. And he's, I think, under 23, which is unbelievable, like to run that sort of pace at that age. Because he doesn't have as many sort of years background because when Callum's obviously ran faster, but Callum had a lot of years of like good consistent races before that and sort of gently built up to that. But just to like be so good so young, like the talent is insane. So you think like, what could he run for marathon in a few years' time? And I think it won't be too long before we have guys running like 2:07 and maybe even quicker. Certainly in the men's, and I'd say the women's as well. Like obviously Paula Radcliffe was like miles ahead of everybody else for so long. But I'd like to think that people will get closer to her time in the UK too. Yeah,
the British women right now in the marathon especially are just smashing it. There seems to be so many of them that are all around the similar sort of pace as well. I think it's really exciting. Again, for the Olympic trials as well. I think the female is really exciting.
Like sub 2:30 now, because years ago, like when you looked at the likes of the British teams or Commonwealth teams, some it was like 2:35s and things you could maybe get picked, but now I think you have to run like 2:26, and it's just it's ridiculous. So it's a good place for sure, but it's like I feel like I've seen a lot of the good years now. Like I've been there before it was really good, and now I'm kind of there when it's really good. I'm not at the front, but I've kind of been in amongst it, which has been exciting to see.
And so you're self-coached, is that right?
At the moment.
So
anyway.
Who holds you accountable then, or is it just self-accountability?
I guess so. I mean, I don't even really plan things anymore. I know just roughly what I want to do in the week. Like I don't really think about what I want to do, but I kind of just know, like, on that day I want to do this session, and then I want to do that session later in the week, and then that'll kind of build on nicely from where I'm at and things. So I I think before when I started being self-coached, I was like writing the plans out like weeks in advance.
Okay.
But then I found that I didn't really need to stick to it as such. I kind of just, sometimes I'd wake up and I'd be like, nah, this is the session I want to do today. Like, this is what I need, the way I feel right now. So then I would do that. And it's probably not the best. I don't think it works for many people to be self-coached. So I wouldn't recommend it.
You've clearly made it work anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's tricky to get a coach though that really works for you. And also because I've been mixing up like mountain running and marathon, it's very hard to get someone who would coach both and accept both races, both types of racing. So yeah, it's worked better for me just to be self-coached.
Cool.
But it may change.
Yeah.
In the future, I might try and get a coach. Like it's not set in stone. It's just
the way it's been.
Yeah.
And if you were to start your whole career again, is there anything that you would do differently or anything you would change at all?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think so, no. I think, when I was younger, everybody told me I was doing daft things. But I mean, I was just hearing that all the time. Like, oh, you're running too long, you're running too many hills, doing too much, and oh, you should be running on the track and doing that. And I think if I'd started on the track and more, when I was younger, just done track instead of hill running, I would have probably had a lot more speed in my legs and, might have got a lot faster at like 5K and 10K. And then it might have been better for the marathon. But I think like if I'd actually just ran on the track, I might have quit because it might have been really boring, because I don't really enjoy that. I much prefer running on the hills. So doing the hill training, I think, gave me a totally different outlook on everything else. I only really got back into road running again when I was in my 20s. Like, I just did a few races for a bit of training, but I never trained on the road. And I think it would have been a mistake to focus on that. So I think, I was happy with what I did in terms of going straight into the hill running and then coming back to road at an older age with less speed. But
so what's the career highlight so far then?
That's a good. I think, despite thinking of myself as more of a mountain runner, I think the Commonwealth Games was a highlight because it was very unexpected, and it's not really I don't really see myself as being a very good road runner. So that was that was a big surprise and something I never thought was possible. But then in terms of other races, like I think when I got the medal in the World Mountain Running Championships, like that was, at the time, that was the biggest achievement, and because it was very hard, very, very hard. I was basically losing my vision on the last lap. Like everything was going black. And it was so hard. And Jungfrau Marathon as well, like just having won that a few times. That's definitely another highlight, but it's hard to just have one favorite. I want more highlights in the future as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's still going to be plenty more. And then, so what about outside of running then? What other interests have you got? What other important things are in your life? I know I see pictures of you gardening and things like that. Is that an interest?
I mean, certainly that's been more in the last year, just with I do like gardening and things, and certainly growing vegetables, stuff like that. But it's just having the time to do it all. Like, so I built like a pond in the garden last year, and I'm quite into building ponds and things and keeping fish. I'd like to do more of that, but it's just having the time. And the same with the vegetables, because I'm quite often away in the summer, so I can't really overcommit to having loads of things planted, and then I'm away in the summer when it's all ready. So that's these things will hopefully do a bit more of once I'm not away so much. But quite into fishing as well. Like I've done a lot of that over the years. So basically, if I can fit it in along with my running, then I quite like doing both. But again, it's hard to do a lot of fishing because you just need a lot of time. So
fishing, that could also be good for recovery. Get in the river, cold water therapy.
Could be, but then the reality is you're standing in the wind and rain, freezing cold, and your bones are cold, and you just feel so stiff, and you're out for like 10 hours or something outside, like on your feet, and then your feet are soaked, so you're completely numb. Cool.
And then, so what about some tips for the everyday runner like myself, or those getting into the sport? What's your big tips for, I suppose, people getting into running?
you're not an everyday runner, Brian. You're fast. Oh, well, I would say, yeah, like if you're starting running, I think there's no rush. Like a lot of people feel that they need to push themselves every run. And quite often I'm out running and I see people, it's fine to push yourself every now and then, but you don't have to. Like easy runs can be super slow. Just try to get the feel of your own breathing and just concentrate on getting in a good rhythm and not forcing the pace too much. So yeah, if it means slowing down, then yeah, do that. Don't worry about how fast you're going or look at your watch or anything. And I think another thing is to choose running routes that you enjoy, like places you like being anyway, because like for some reason I think a lot of people get in the way of running on pavements round about where they live or on the roads and stuff, and it's fine, like it's good training. But if you live like near a nice park or a nice forest or you've got nice riverside trails, I think it's great to go there and explore a bit, just because it's stuff to look at and you just feel much better and you feel more relaxed. So then I think you get more out of the run than running like loops around the pavements and things.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to have that variety, and yeah, and just building up gently, because it's very difficult now. Like when I started running, I had no idea what anybody else was doing. I didn't have there's no social media and like Strava and things and training plans out there. You didn't really know what to do. Whereas now, like you can look at what one of your friends is doing every day. You get a little update, like this guy has ran 20 miles this morning before you've even got out of bed. And it can really be a bit intimidating. So I think just switching off from that and looking at what you're doing and say, like, I'm not doing as much as that guy, that's fine, but what I'm doing is better than I was doing a few months ago. Like I've made progress within myself. I'm running further, I'm building up carefully, and it's right for me. But it's not the same as, and I don't need to worry about Strava and like seeing a guy running 100 miles a week if you're not ready for that. It's just
exactly. And I think it's easy to say, don't compare yourself to others, but because of the Stravas and things like that, it's inevitable that people do so. But you really do just need to focus on yourself. And I think you said it earlier that taking your easy days, do them really easy. I think people can get caught up in getting too transfixed on their Strava and think, oh, well, I've got to run at a certain pace. Whereas, you actually feel better if you just take your easy runs or your recovery runs really easy and let your body recover. So, great tips there.
That's why it's good to run up hills, because when you do a hill run, nobody ever asks how fast it was because it's on a hill. Like you don't worry about pace. So that's why it's good to run up hills, and then you can just take it really easy, just walk bits, take nice photos, and then
yeah, exactly. So one of the things I can definitely claim to share with Robbie Simpson is the fact that we both own a FKT, a fastest known time. So that's my little claim to fame. So in the summer you did the 5 hills of Aberdeen, is that right?
Yeah, just for a bit of something to do. Because I've always quite fancied linking up all those hills into one run. So I thought I'll do it as a bit of a challenge and start right in the city centre and do that. And I don't know if anybody else has given it a go yet, but
you've probably set the standard and everyone's scared to do it. Whereas with my one, I set it because I'm the only one that think it's done it, but I'm going to just cling on to that for as long as I can until inevitably, somebody like you, especially where you live, I'm sure would like to have a crack at the D-side way and knock my one out of the park. But,
I've got some inside information on that, Brian. I'm not sure if I should share, but it's not myself, and I might have a go at it one time, but there is a very good local runner that is planning to do it actually this weekend.
Okay. I did suspect that I might not have it too long, so yeah, I was waiting for a proper ultra runner to come along and grab it off me. So
just with the D33 being cancelled, somebody changed their plans to basically have a go. So I'm interested to see. He is a good runner. He does do some ultra races, so he's good. You might, but then you might not beat your time. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So look out on Strava on Sunday evening.
Okay. I will. So, okay, so we'll just start rounding up. And one of the things I'm keen to ask everyone on the podcast is their top tips in three areas. So, top tips for improving performance, for improving recovery, and for improving sleep. So, just quick fire. First of all, what's your top tip for improving performance?
I think running at a variety of intensities through the week. So, like I said, some easy days, really easy, one or two hard days in the week where you are focusing on quality, but then having enough easy days to recover between. And then that should help you be consistent over a long time and, get fitter.
Yeah. And how about recovery then? Tip for improving your recovery?
I'd say to eat something within 30 minutes or an hour of finishing every run, something with carbohydrates. That would be my main tip. Because I was going to say sleep, but because you had sleep as the last one.
Well, the reason I leave sleep till the end is because most people will probably say sleep for recovery. So my sleep one is, what's your tip for being able to improve your sleep then?
I think switching off any phones or not looking at any phones or technology or anything for at least an hour before you want to go to bed, if not more. That would be one tip. So instead of that, just trying to read a book or anything that just helps you calm down a little bit, and turning out like bright lights that are on, like staring you in the face in the last sort of hour or so before bed, just to sort of dim things down, get you a bit more relaxed.
Yeah, definitely. Great tip. And I actually bought myself a pair of blue light blocking glasses just for the very end of the day, just so any of that light that's getting emitted, as it's coming close to bedtime, it just helps limit the impact of that. So that's a good tip for people as well to help with their sleep. So, okay, well, so where can people find you then? Where can they follow you?
I guess I'm on Instagram, Fat Simpson.
Yeah, so this was something I was going to ask you. Why Fat Simpson?
Well, every time I've been away at races, people have always just laughed at me for the amount I'm eating in my meals, like, having tons and tons of food. And even sometimes this was the pre-COVID days, people would just pass their plates up to me with what they'd left and I just clear the plates. So I thought it was a bit of a laugh, but then I think people take it very literally. They're like, "Oh, but you're not fat." I'm like, well, I'm not fat yet, but
well, maybe one day it'll all catch up with you.
Hopefully, yeah. Then I can relax.
Well, anyone you can find Robbie on Instagram at Fat Simpson. Okay, well, thanks so much, Robbie, for coming on. All of us at HBHM wish you all the very best for the trials on the 26th of March. So good luck.
Thank you very much. It's been great to chat to you.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to the latest episode of the HBHM podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Just a reminder that you can get 15% off at checkout on hbhm.com by putting in the code HBHMPod. Please share the latest podcast on socials at Instagram. We are at HBHM Official, and we look forward to speaking to you next time.